Here's another question from Michelle Molesky's class. A student asks, how did you start out illustrating books? Very interesting question. I guess there's different ways I can go about answering it. When I was a little kid, I used to make my own comic books. I would read Spider-Man, and then I would make my own Spider-Man stories. And, I'd read Calvin and Hobbes, and I would do like one-page Calvin and Hobbes comics and things like that. Nothing that I really took too seriously. It was just kind of something I did for fun. And then I remember going to art school, thinking I wanted to be in animation. I thought I wanted to work in animation because at the time, The Lion King was like the really big animated movie in the theaters. And there was all this talk and chatter about computer animation being the future of the business. And I thought, okay, well, this would be a great opportunity for me to get into animation, establish a viable career. And so I went to art school at the Art Center College of Design, and I took my first computer animation course. And if anybody has ever worked on computer software to animate or create art, it's very user unfriendly. It's very hard to use. There's so many things that you have to go through just to make something. And I remember making an animated film, which took about 2 minutes. It was a 2-minute movie. And I remember it took me about 15 weeks to make 2 minutes of film. And it wasn't even that good because I didn't really know how to do a lot of things. And I got really frustrated thinking there has to be a better way to tell stories. And so at my art school, there was a class about how to write and illustrate books for children. And at the time, the only people that were enrolled in that class were me and a good friend of mine who is also a children's book author named Peter Brown. And we were the only two in the class. And I remember all the other art students at the school would look at us and they'd say, oh, how cute. They want to make books for kids. But we took the class. We fell in love with it. I went off to illustrate for magazines and advertising agencies and things like that. But my heart was really into making books for children because what I loved about it was, you knew the format was 32 pages, there was a word count, and it was just a much easier way for me to be able to tell stories and get them out into the world. And so I joined an organization known as the SCBWI, which is short for the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. I went to my first conference and I had a portfolio and this rough layout of a book that I was working on. And this man, he saw this portfolio and he came up to me and he had my dummy book in his hand and he said, I love this book that you've written and I'd like to take it back to my publisher and give you a 2-book deal. And I was really excited. Turned out that man was Arthur Levine, best known for being the editor of Harry Potter. And that's how I got my foot in the business. I went to a children's book conference with a book that I had written, and one of the most famous editors in the world found me and gave me my first shot. And my first book came out in 2004. It was called The Guild of Geniuses. And then once that book came out, suddenly other editors and people in the publishing world saw my work, and then they contacted me to illustrate other manuscripts for their publishing houses. And that's really how I got started. It just started with one book and then a second, and then suddenly, you get more and more of your work out there, and then more and more people contact you. And here I am 17 years later. And now I think I've done over 100 books for kids.